How many of you all knew it was Cybersecurity Awareness Month? I know some of you love it. I believe it's something we should be doing ongoing. It's an annual thing. Why should we only have a month? So I kind of crossed it out and said we'll go with the whole year. Just because we live in this. So security background, how many full-fledged cybersecurity background people do I have? Executive level, CISO, director, you run teams, SOC, analyst, new to the business. Sweet. So we're going to be all over the map because I'm kind of pulling some thoughts together, but I was asked to share on AI, which I'm very passionate about, and cyber and security and whatnot. So we'll talk about that as well. But as was mentioned, my name is Shawn Anderson, and that is totally 100% safe. Trust me. So it really is. So I started using the dot card. Have any of you heard of the dot card? So if you go look it up, they'll mail it to you. It's a nice little card instead of carrying business cards. But that will take you to my LinkedIn profile. It'll also take you to my dot profile, so you'll have all my contact information. And then you can text me and shoot me nasty grams and whatnot. And I won't know who the heck you are unless you tell me. So give me some context when you do, because I get spammed all the time. And like most of you, I don't know how many phone calls you get a day from somebody saying I qualify for a $500,000 loan. That's just the world we live in now. So been a CISO twice. We'll go way back. So we have a new person in the industry. I was in the military a lifetime ago. I got called in the office by a very senior person, and he goes, "Anderson?" "Yes, sir." "Do you know what Unix is?" Now, Marine, a little bit of a smartass in me. I had a lot of ways I could go with that, but I went, "Computers, sir?" And he said, "Good, you're going to the class." I ended up in a 2-week system administrator course for Unix. For those of you that are old enough to know, Solaris and Spark UX and Sun Solaris, had no idea what I was doing. I sat on this box for 2 weeks. My takeaway, I knew what an IP address was when I got out of that class. So I come back to the office, and there was another agent that I was working with. She was getting ready to close a case, and she had this stack of paperwork on her desk. And I realized, and I looked at it, and I said, "Those aren't phone numbers. Those are IP addresses." And that led to what the Marine Corps had as the first computer investigation, where we had 102 people in the title block, from a full bird colonel down to a low-life private that just had a bad day, because they, at the time, were misusing computers to go and do things they shouldn't have been doing. So I decided, hey, I kind of like this. So I went off and I worked at NCIS, and this was in the early days before the show was online and the TV show, so most of you probably learned about NCIS through that. I showed up on Friday. On Monday, I come into the office, and I had been working, I went through a small systems computer specialist course. So I learned not just what an IP address was, but we had to actually subnet on a piece of paper. For those of you now, it's just table lookup, so you get to cheat. So I get up there and I get called in, and on Monday I go in this GS-14, which is very senior in the government, said, "You're going downtown to the bureau." 26 years old. I looked down and went, "Great, what bureau?" I had not heard of the bureau before, because I was a Marine, right? So I go and I get on the metro, I go down to the bureau, and I'm at the J. Edgar Hoover building, which I found out real quick was the FBI. Cool. Get in, go up to this 5th floor room, and it's this big, it's about as big as this room up here, because they hadn't built out the floor yet. There's 5 agents working in there, 3 analysts, and we ended up working a case called Solar Sunrise. And the reason I'm mentioning all this is it gives you context to where we're at today, because I'm going to end this next talking about AI and why it kind of is cool as hell, but scares the hell out of me at the same time. Solar Sunrise was this bad actor out of the Middle East that was using 2 kids in California to hack into what? Anybody know what Solar Sunrise? Anybody heard of it? So happy. You and I probably talked before. He was using 2 kids in California to hack into DNS servers. This is a bad thing, right? So we have these domain name systems, controllers that, what do? They help translate an IP address into a web address so that you can then translate and go to the right websites. And the Marine Corps, I found out, so this is why the FBI said, hey, the Marines are here, great, we can start. No idea what I'm doing yet. Found out that the Marine Corps had 2 DNS servers on this little state island of Hawaii. And those 2 DNS servers were the whole Pacific Rim. So this was 98 time frame, and that started me off in this journey called cyber. And I haven't looked back since. We had to go to Hawaii and actually tell them, don't turn those servers off. We had a very hard-charging major who wanted to, and we told him repeatedly, please do not turn those servers off because they are the whole Pacific Rim. And I can't make this up. These 2 computers sitting in an office with dust on them, literally, were all the way California to Japan, and everything out in the middle. It was amazing to know that we were using this kind of technology at the time. So why is security such a problem? How many of you think that security, or think that we have a problem with security? I don't think it's a problem. I think we have, is that blurry or my eyes are? It's all right. Is it okay? Can you all see that okay? All right. Well, I'm going to talk to it anyway. So this is what I call the attack life cycle. You can look this up. IBM, I think, or one, they coin it. It's an attack life cycle, cyber kill chain. Depending on whose name you use, I probably owe somebody $1. However, we live in this world every day, and you have bad actors trying to get into your environment. And what's the #1 problem everyone's dealing with right now? Ransomware. Ransomware, Black Cat, you've read in the news. How many of you read the blog that Microsoft put out on that particular? It's actually a decent blog. It tells you, it takes you through every step of what happened. The problem with that is we have this attack life cycle, and you have people clicking links. And I don't care how good your training is. I don't care how many times you train people. Someone will always click the link. And AI has gotten awesome, right? I can go in and I can ask Bard or ChatGPT. Now, I found this out. You can ask it, hey, will you write me a phishing email? Well, no, that's bad. I can't do that. Will you draft me an example of a phishing email? Absolutely. Here you go. So you just have to know, it's like iRobot. You've all seen the movie. That is not the right question. You have to know how to ask it. So there are ways to hack that. So we have this attack life cycle. And we have all of these. I have to click each one. Oh, not having a button stop. There we go. So industry comes out and they provide you all of these tools. And the average number of tools, you'll have email security here. You might have Microsoft Defender, Proofpoint. You've got some IoT, OT security in here. A lot of people were using CyberX, and now it's Defender for IoT if you're Microsoft. We have cloud security, and all the providers go shared security model. How many of you work with the cloud providers today? So I spent 2 years at AWS, and it is still frustrating to me because they tell me that we don't have access to your data. We choose not to look at your data, is how I prefer they would say it. And I say this because you own a house, and you may let somebody use your guest room, and you may tell them there's a lock on the door and we're giving you a key. But I'm going to tell you right now, you have access to that bedroom. It's your house. They're going to tell you we won't come in on you. We won't unlock that door or go get a key made, but we could if we wanted to. I look at the cloud providers the same way. So you really have to have a lot of trust with your provider. And you have the insider risk management. We were talking earlier, I think someone mentioned Enron. And I look at that as if I go in and have to do a red team and they tell me my insider threat is my CEO, I go home. It's you basically are chalking it up as a bad day because they're your insider. Same thing with system administrators. How many of you do I have any sysads, former sysads? Did you use service accounts? Elevate privileges on a service account to admin because you wanted to use a workaround and maybe park it for later? I had a system administrator working for me that had been with there about 20, 22 years and had about 30 different accounts. And that's a bad day. So your insider risk management is now come into play. So you have all of these different bad things going on across your environment. But it gets a little bit worse, and here's why. when I talked about Black Hat and I talked about ransomware, people are going to click the link. The problem is it's easy money. Maybe you've all seen the slide where you can buy a denial of service attack for $1,500, and it comes with tech support. Well, Black Hat is kind of working the same way right now. So they have affiliates out there. So you have this Dev0237, Dev0504. They actually are affiliates that will go to this group and they'll say, hey, we want to use these tools. Okay, great. You can use our tools, but you got to give us a little bit of a kickback if you're successful. And they're happy to do that. They're having this problem in DC right now on a different scale where kids are going in and stealing the CVS blind because street vendors are paying them $50 to go in and knock, because it's the same sort of process that's going on. So ransomware has gotten pretty bad, and it continues to get worse. And as we look at artificial intelligence, I now can create bots, and I can just replicate this problem, and it's just going to continue to get worse. But we also are dealing with, like I mentioned earlier, the smarter phishing attacks, supply chain. If you work with cloud providers, you should be asking this question. Who are they using to provide the services? Who are their suppliers? How are they securing their environment? APTs, I'm not here to doom and gloom you, but I will tell you there are certain countries in the world, China, that don't like us. And it's not that they don't like us as a people. They don't like that we have certain freedoms, that we don't think like they do, that we don't act like they do, that we don't have one or two people with great cosmic power. And they would like nothing more. And I joke a lot. Plagiarism's a purest form of flattery. They flat out just want to steal it. They take technology day to day. So advanced persistent threat is not going away. We have other countries around the world doing the same thing. And we have to deal with that. Cloud security continues to evolve. How many of you are Microsoft or AWS or GCP customers? You're using cloud providers? And have you, if you're Microsoft, can you tell me how many Defender tools they have? Yeah, there's probably a dozen. I know there's Defender for storage, Defender for endpoint, Defender for servers, Defender for IoT, Defender for toilets. Defender for, they coined that. Well, if you're at AWS, what's the word they use for everything? Elastic. I have elastic this, elastic that, elastic, it's all, they all have their own words. Now we have the IoT and OT security issues as well. Those are the devices. And if you're in security, here's the love that I have for this world. If there's any problem or any new thing, who gets stuck with it? Security. Privacy issues. Oh, that sounds like a security issue. Let's give it over to them. So when GDPR hits, it's like, well, that really should not be our... Sarbanes was the first one, right? SOX and Sarbanes, oh, well, that's administrative, that's security. Oh, throw it to the CISO. The CISO gets landed with everything. So now you're working in manufacturing. Operationally, the manufacturing plant has been owned by a certain team for decades, and now the government comes out with this new maturity capability model. Then they say manufacturing must have controls. Who do they go to? The CISO. You now are responsible for all management of the security on the plant floor. Any of us go to a manufacturing degree or go to that, you just have to figure it out. So IoT, OT, we talk about insider threats, data breaches, and the list goes on. What did I put on this one? Oh, that's just more scary stuff. Identity, I'm gonna have two main themes. Identity is the control plane. I firmly believe this, but not just in the sense of identity coming out of Intra or Okta or Ping or OneLogin or whatever you're using. I want you to go back to your industry peers and have the conversations around identity at the API level, identity at the storage level, identity within the database itself. How do you limit access to certain cells or certain tables within a database? Because we're not asking the right questions, and we have to continually challenge and ask the right questions, or we're not going to get things fixed. Because and cloud providers they know they love to do this. Oh, well, we didn't tell you because you didn't ask. You get that a lot. And when I talk about identity as a control plane, I also want to lead that it's all about the data. And you all have, I know some of you are car aficionados, you all probably drive a car. You get in a car accident, and I don't know of anybody who goes, hey, how was the Honda? How was the Jeep? How was the Mercedes? They don't ask that. How are the passengers? It's payload. And now, how many of you grew up on-prem? I know you did. You're new to the field. Many of us grew up on-prem. So we built our networks with what? Firewalls, cables. We put it on a server inside of a room, locked in a closet. We told people you can access it if you can get into the room. We put intrusion detection. We built the environment so that it was more of a gates, guns, and guards mentality, that if you really need it, you'll go find it. We have to flip the paradigm now with the cloud. Man. The problem is when you move to the cloud, you've got to think about data protection continuously and application security. You cannot build for the cloud the way we built on-prem. And I found that when I go out and I talk to networking and I talk to industry, even startups, they are building their solutions based on their on-prem understanding of how things work. You have to think for the cloud and how data is everywhere and how your data is now accessible from anywhere. I printed my whole spiel out upstairs from my iPhone. I go up to the printer, go online to Wi-Fi, go to the printer name, print it out. It's unheard of 10 years ago. You just couldn't do it. And I'm editing my Word document on my phone versus I had to be hooked up to my computer. I couldn't print. I couldn't get access. Did it seamless. So when I talk about data, and I like to use pictures, I know it's probably not colorful enough, but I look at data as a three-legged stool. And I'm using this because I talk to a lot of executives, and you're welcome to use these. This is actually a Microsoft type slide. And I liked it so much because Brett Arsenault, the CISO for Microsoft, and he's a pretty cool dude. He uses this to brief boards. So if he can use this to brief boards, I can steal it and use it to talk to all of you, and you can take it back and brief your boards. But data or information protection is dependent on really three things. I have to have telemetry. I've got to have good data. I've got to have good telemetry coming in off the environment. And I have to have identity. I have to be able to identify who, what is trying to access that device or that piece of data. And then I have to have the third piece over there, which is I have to be able to trust the device to some level. Now, some of us, I came out of the military, so and I think that the way the military does classified translates very well to the civilian world, but we don't. If you create a document, you're responsible for knowing what level of protection that document needs. But today, we're generating information so fast. Once we generate it, we give that kind of out to the ether and let the ether decide what level of protection it needs to be. But so when I talk about device trust, if I'm an administrator, I may give them a dedicated device to do their administrative work on. Coming in via, they might not have any access to anything other than a fully tight tunneled VPN. And that device is strictly for doing administration. So there's no browser, there's no internet access. It's strictly to get into the environment wherever they're at. Microsoft and AWS, they use this. Microsoft calls it a SAW, Secure Admin Workstation. They have, I think, 25,000 of them across their 250,000 employees. Because anybody who has administrative rights has to be on that dedicated hardware. So you think about, we're in this cloud world, yet we're still going back to having a dedicated. But then I might have the need for someone to go on travel and they're just going to look at their timesheet. They're going to go to Netflix when they're at a hotel at night. I don't need them to have a dedicated box. I just need to be able to get to a certain level of trust. And then the foundation piece, which we can talk a whole other conversation on, is the risk management and the assurance. So when I talk about data protection, start thinking about AI. Start thinking about safety, right? Because AI is going to impact every industry, and I'll talk some ways about that in a few. And it's going to come from this data protection and safety kind of mentality. I said Sarbanes earlier. How many of you work in an organization where you follow a framework? CIS benchmarks, you go to NIST and you're following 853. I've been to many Fortune 500 companies that do not follow a framework. And I'm telling you right now, they're setting themselves up for pain and agony. The reason I say that is your regulators are coming after you. How many of you live in towns where they have the red light cameras? You all do. Yeah, I mean, and now if you live in Maryland, they've got speed cameras as well. So if you go 26 and a 25, you will get a ticket. But I look at it as easy money. Why are the regulators coming after organizations now for not protecting their environments? Easy money. I can go to all of your companies right now, and I have no doubt in my mind that you're doing the bare minimum that you need to be doing to protect your environment. Even if you're doing the maximum, I know there's holes. It's just too easy. So you've got to really look and pick a framework so that you can show. We have any lawyers? I'll save those. You have due care and due diligence. If you've taken any CISSP or you take any security course, you have due care and due diligence. Did you know and did you do? If you know you have a problem, you have a duty to do something about it, not just address it. I mean, a lot of people handle risk and say, it just won't happen, we'll bury our head in the sand. But these regulators out here want to know that you're doing your due diligence. So if you pick a framework, and if you're in the SOC, they might follow the MITRE ATT&CK framework, and you can see what you're covering in the MITRE ATT&CK framework, and it shows you what bubbles you don't have security in. You're going to have to show the due diligence piece. And with the advent of technology and what's happening even faster now with data and cloud, it's getting a lot harder to keep our handle on that data sovereignty piece and being able to have control over what's going on with our investments. I have a lot of organizations that do not have enough resources. How many of you are actively hiring right now and can't find qualified candidates? I'm just curious. A lot of, I work in an investment bank, so we'll talk about that in a minute, but the challenge is staffing. So a lot of MSPs are growing rapidly right now because I need people and I don't have people, so I'm outsourcing it. If you don't have a framework, you don't have a methodology, how are they going to help you? It's a lot easier to point them in a direction of, we are going to work to this standard, get us there. So, not having a clicker is so weird. CMMC, it's fairly new. It's for manufacturing. It's kind of a nightmare, but it's a newer compliance model that manufacturing organizations have to go to. ISO 27000 is European basically, but it's got a lot of, it's COVID, and I'm just hitting on the high ones. You may, as you find you're a large organization with international, you've got to go find your equivalent in that country, especially if you're dealing with data sovereignty. But at the end of the day, identity is a control plane. It's about the data. Final bullet, pick a framework, please. So what does Boss ready to do? So taking a step back, I was a CISO for Raytheon's Intel business years ago. So I got a lot of three-letter agencies in my background. Yes, they do a lot of scary stuff. No, I'm not concerned about them having access to all of our data because I worked at the three-letter agencies, and it will take a lot of time for them to ever have the capability nor care to have access to everybody's data. They may say they do, but it's too much data out there. I have 7 letters. How many of you have letters from organizations stating that we're sorry to tell you that your information was compromised and now belongs to somebody else? I have 7 of them. They're in a binder at the house. So everything is out there. I just go, thankfully I'm not well known enough that they care, and there's a lot of Shawn Andersons running around. So coming full circle, I was also the CISO at an energy company. We built the green glowy stuff. And I got called there. So I got called by a friend of mine who said, hey, I need a CISO. Sweet, what happened? Because you don't get called to be a CISO if nothing's happening. You get called in to be a CISO if something happened. Because they want, and this is something for you as you start your career, if you really want to go down this path or not, because that's your future. It's because I need to be able to blame somebody, but I don't have them here now, so we're going to hire somebody to help defer the blame. However, their data breach was so bad They got on the phone and they said, what's going on? Your data's going to an APT, pull the plug in the data center, just shut the power off. They shut the power off and they shut the internet down for that organization for 3 months. They went standalone computers. Now, they were manufacturing, so their plant was fine, but they went whole closed system. And so I get called going, we need help to reconnect our environment to the world. So come full circle, I spent a couple of years at AWS, and it's really challenging when you're telling Kevin over at Mandiant or Trend Micro or whatever, hey, build a cloud capability, consume cloud, it's great. And it's challenging too because we live in this world of consumption now. If anybody in sales, IT sales, you get paid on boxes normally in the past. You sell a server, you get $1. Cloud, you sell a cloud, it's like I sold petabytes. Yeah, but you won't get paid until they consume it. Doesn't work. Thankfully, I was recruited out of there, went to Microsoft. I met Boston Meridian. I'm going to skip these slides because basically I'm just going to tell you what I do. Small company, investment bank. I added their pictures because, I don't know, I like to show the people I work with. We help startups get funding, and we also, as a CTO and CISO, coach. So if you're a small business, you're in cyber, you're in IT, and when I say small, I'll talk about numbers. 7 to 10 million ARR, which is realized revenue on an annual basis. That's where you start to gain traction, but we start with companies when they might be at not making money at all. They might have not even made $1. They have an idea, they want funding, they've got to start, and then we go all the way up to, we've sold a few companies. We sold Fugue to Sneak. We sold RiskLens earlier this year to Safe. Some of you know these companies. We sold LogPoint over in Amsterdam to Summa Equity. They were one of the largest on-prem SIEM providers in that area of the world. So we do a lot of work in this field. So the reason I'm telling you this is why AI and what we're doing fascinates me, because I see startups every single day. And believe it or not, they're not focusing on what's coming down the pipe. They're trying to solve problems today, which is kind of interesting if you think about it. And any of you that are sitting in the seat today as a CISO or CIO, you're probably spending 90% of your day doing what? Blocking and tackling. You're dealing with problems. You don't have unless you dedicate time to sit down and say, hey, what's going to happen in a year or two? You're not doing it. So thankfully, I get to spend time looking at this kind of stuff and trying to figure out where things are heading. Identity, data, safety. I already talked about that. Oh, what are the investors looking for? So when you're all in the business, how many of you talk to interview vendors? You're all going to at some point. Ask them questions about what is your board structure? What is your corporate structure? How big are you? Because if you go and as a CIO or CISO, I'd say 90% of the companies that I work with today, I would have never had any exposure to in the seat because they're still small. But once in a while, they'd trickle into my office and I would talk to them. And I realized that even the C-suite, they do not ask the questions that I do in my job now, but you should be asking these questions. How do they secure their environment? Do they use other third-party software to build their environment? Where are their developers located? Some of these companies that are startups have like 2 employees and the rest are all scattered to the winds, and but they look big because anybody can make a good website. I'm convinced of that. So what we do, and the reason I mention this is, did it work? I'm telling you, not having a clicker is killing me. I know this is an eye chart. You can have access to this. If you go to our website, you can actually download it. We don't share your information with anybody. I can honestly tell you, we won't even call you unless you want a phone call. But I show this because, how many of you are familiar with Momentum Partners? They have a map that they put out. Those are all publicly traded companies on their map. This is all non-publicly traded. These are all small companies that are in that $1 to $20 million revenue stream. They're doing security. Strategics, and the reason that I spend a lot of time is I talk to probably 7 to 10 strategics a week, and I'm talking to 7 to 10 of these a week. And we're talking to the CEOs, we're talking to industry, asking where things are heading, what are they seeing. AI, in fact, we kind of joked, how many of you went to RSA? If you haven't been to RSA, it's a good conference to get out to and go to. But what cracked us up is the AI thing hit about 6 weeks before RSA. And if you walk the show floor, all the marketing material was made before ChatGPT. So while everybody was talking about it, you didn't see AI anywhere in the Moscone Center. It just wasn't there. And part of that reason is they built their marketing material before AI hit. Now I cannot go into a VC, private equity, anybody and not have a conversation around AI. I truly think this is a frontier kind of changing momentum type event that we in industry are going to have to really start studying and understanding, because it's going to impact every single aspect of our lives. It just freaks me out that I now have to spend $5,000 on a refrigerator, but it tells me when my milk goes bad. I prefer a $500 refrigerator, and I'll figure out the milk's bad myself. But that's not the world we live in. Everything is interconnected. And these are the companies across those 8 categories. And we kind of decided why these 8 categories. I didn't map this to Gartner. I didn't map this to Forrester. I went out and we talked to a lot of different companies. This is pretty much, if you look at the OSI model, and I implore you, if you're in this industry, Network Plus and Security Plus are 2 good certifications you should look at. At least go buy the book and read it. And if you're new, go get that cert, because it'll give you leaps and bounds ahead of your peers. I've been doing this a long time, and I'm surprised how many people work in this industry now who don't really know how to subnet. They just never learned how networks were built, but they're in security. 70% of these executives are technology focused. And so when I talk to these companies, I'm asking them questions about, what are you solving? What does this capability do? A big thing that you need to ask your vendors too, as you start looking at AI and start looking at technology, does this work on-prem? Is it multi-cloud? Is it multi-tenant? I have found a lot of companies now are moving to private cloud, because you move to the cloud providers, they'll never self-admit this, but you're not saving money moving to the cloud. Anybody who tells you you're saving money by moving to the cloud is probably not, they're lying to you. However, you need to have the conversations with them around, do you work in a multi-cloud environment? I had a startup company I was talking to a few weeks ago, and they were built on AWS. How many of you are familiar with the marketplace? You can go out to the marketplace at AWS, GCP has one, Azure has one, and you can find any capability under the sun out there and turn it on. The problem was they had no idea that they could be built on one platform and accessible through the other marketplaces. And so when you start talking to these companies and they're coming in with this new technology, oh, we're cloud security posture management, we're using AI integration, and we're the best thing since sliced bread, but we only work in AWS. May want to reconsider. Also, ask them where they're getting their AI engine, where they're getting their telemetry from. Oh, we grew it in-house. You're a 3-person company. What did you grow? I mean, it's a scaling thing. We were having discussion yesterday with these large learning models, these language models. This is all math right now. The big players have access to yottabytes of data. I mean, we used to be concerned in investigations when 1 gig hard drives came out. And I know we were talking about floppy drives yesterday, and those are really small little disks and computers that didn't have any hard drives. And a 1 gig hard drive was a stack of paper as tall as the Washington Monument, to give you an idea. And now you look at a yottabyte, and that basically covers the whole planet twice, with stacks of 8.5 by 11 paper. We live in a world now where you just can't get your handle around the amount and volume of data, and we don't delete anything anymore. Oh, why would we delete it? I think you should delete stuff. You should get rid of email after 60 days or whatever, because plausible deniability is a great thing. Unless some regulator's telling you to keep it, why? But we deal with these, and we deal with these companies. Some words to stay away from. Oh, we provide a single pane of glass. Great. We're cloud native. Cloud native is actually a good one. Born in the cloud. You find companies born in the cloud. The thing you need to be cautioned there is, okay, you're born in the cloud, you're cloud native. Do you work on-prem? Well, no, because you're going to move to the cloud. 95% of the world is still on premises. They do not have, they might have some cloud capability, but they're not in the cloud. The cloud and AI, to me, cloud is still fairly new, and now we're jumping right into AI, and we're going to have to get smart on this whole industry changing dynamic, and we still haven't quite figured out cloud. Basically, you're renting someone else's house and need to have access to it, but you still need to know everything about the house, which kind of sucks, but because they don't want to let you. So what do we do? Couple of, oh, I don't want to skip that one. There we go. I mentioned single pane of glass. I mentioned cloud native, zero trust. I do believe identity is a control plane, data security, safety. This third one, zero trust or assume compromise. And you notice I say assume compromise. I didn't say assume data loss. Assume you have an administrator who has more access than they should. Assume you have an executive CFO that's going to click the link in the phishing email. CFO. I'm not. It's Tourette's, but they just seem to be the executives that do it because they're moving so fast. And I actually have employees that have said, "Well, I don't open it on my computer. I do it on my phone." Yeah, I sigh. Just as bad. Just a smaller computer, sorry to say. Unified threat management. If I go to the next conference and I meet a vendor that says unified threat management, I'm going to go to jail because I'll probably hit him. That and API security. I need another API security tool like I need a hole in my head. Identity for API maybe, but this is the challenge we have is there's bloat, and there's a lot of companies trying to do the same thing. And then finally, when you're selling to investors, and for those of you that work in the startup world, you know this. It's different than when you're selling to customers. You have different goals. And I this is selling 101, and I'm not here to sell you on anything. I'm just kind of here to give you my decades of experience in what I've seen. Know your audience. We're here. We're learning about security. There's a lot of people in here that have got bruises, banged up, cuts. They've screwed up more than they've fixed, but that's life. That's the way you do it. Know your audience and know what you're going in to do. Find a partner team and get registered. If you are in the business of running an IT security program, find a good SI, an integrator that you trust. So when Palo and Microsoft and whoever's knocking on your door, tell them, hey, go talk to them first. I've got too much work to do. I can't be talking to vendors every day. It's a people business. At the end of the day, this is a people business. The technology is not going to solve us out of anything. Work your network. If I'm in the SOC, I ask the analysts, what other companies are you talking to? And I think that's where AI is really going to help. Because I'm an analyst and I got 1 to 3 years experience. I've taken a couple of classes. It's a lot easier for me to go into a ChatGPT type environment and say, what security problems do we have on ports what through what? And have it spit it out. Than going to a command line and trying to learn all the different commands and backslashes and things that we needed to know 20 years ago. And it's not that they still don't need to know that. It's just that my tier 1, tier 2 should be done by the system and automated. And they need to be, but we still have a problem getting new people into the field. I think I saw one hand go up of someone who's new to the field in this room right now. And we need a lot more. So I'm going to talk to why AI fascinates me, and then we'll have some questions. I do believe this is the new frontier. Any of you watch the new Star Trek show on Paramount Plus with the black lady who's the captain? So they have an AI. They have an AI on this show, and I'm encouraging you all go. If you're not a Trekkie and you're Star Wars, it doesn't matter. Cross the stream, okay? Go and watch this because it gives you an idea of where. I was having a conversation with a person yesterday, and AI is going to get really smart really fast. What makes any of us in this room think that in 5-10 years AI will give a crap about any of us? Yeah. Wow, hadn't thought of that, Shawn. Because as you get more education, we've all done this. You deal with people who may not have as much education as you. It's like, wow, this is not what I expected in this conversation. We have to be really careful with this because AI is going to change the dynamics of every single industry. And let me give you a couple examples. These are just things that I think are just so fascinating to me. Autonomous vehicles, I probably piss more Uber and Lyft drivers. I still have a good score though, so it's not, they're not too pissed at me. Anything above 495. If I have any 5.0 people in here, you're just suck-ups. Especially if you travel all the time. But autonomous vehicles, what I believe is going to happen is in the great cities of Chicago, New York, San Francisco, the larger metropolitan areas, they're going to come a time where they're going to say safety is absolutely paramount. I do not want anybody driving vehicles inside the city limits anymore. So the buses are going to go to autonomous. Vehicles are going to go, you're going to get in an Uber, and it's just like Johnny whatever in Total Recall. His name was Johnny, right? Johnny Cab. Thank you. I knew somebody was going to know that. But and that was kind of freaky. But AI is going to run these vehicles. And if you've been to the big cities, they're testing these. The amount of equipment on the car is more expensive than anything, the car itself. I think that we're going to use these for GPS. Think about the amount of technology. Your laptop in a couple of years is going to need to be replaced. Every computer we're using today is not going to hack it in a couple of years because AI is going to require so much better, more processing power. It's just a reality. I think our robotics in the surgical environment, AI is going to do some fantastic things for the medical industry around the capabilities. And I mentioned something you can actually go out. Where's it at? Da Vinci. I forgot the name. That surgical system. If you have not gone out and actually just take a note, go look at what that system is capable of doing. You're going to go in and literally, these systems are helping doctors and helping medical to be able, in fact, somebody was using, I don't recommend this, they were using ChatGPT and it actually, they went through a list of questions and it diagnosed their problem. They went to the doctor and said, hey, I went online, which nobody should go online because you'll find out you're dying of something really bad like tomorrow. However, the system diagnosed what they had and the doctor was like, went and did some tests and said, you're absolutely right. And the doctor could not figure this out. It's things that we need to consider. Manufacturing, agriculture. I was in the military for 10 years. I served in the Gulf, and I'm telling you, I watch a lot of movies and whatnot. Avatar comes out, and I am so jealous of the exoskeletons. It's just so much easier if I can get in a machine and have something else lift it. But that kind of technology and the physical disabilities that people have today, and we have a lot of military that come back, and IEDs are causing a lot of problems because but AI and machine learning and robotics coming together is going to really change this environment. We have, I know John worked at John Deere for 20 years, John Johnson, who hosts this event. You should talk to him about some of the technology they're using for farm equipment. The drones and the drone technology. What frustrates me is I live in Northern Virginia, and we live in the data center capital of the world, and they're building them everywhere. But also, I live on a former golf course, and every weekend I can walk out in my backyard, and I'll hear the little and look out and there'll be drones flying around. They're everywhere now. Yes, sir. Right. Yeah, and it's scary at the same time because you're going to go to your fridge and you're going to want to eat something and your refrigerator is going to tell you, no, you can't eat that. There's a new capability out. What is that? Well, it's not Noom. That's the app. You breathe into it, and it tells you your caloric count and whether you need more carbs or protein right now. And I'm like, I'm scary where this stuff is going because it's going to tell you, your credit card's not going to work at McDonald's because the government says you're too fat. And I'm not making this up. This is where I think things are going to shift to. And corporations are going to want this stuff too because they want healthy employees, right? I know I joke about this stuff, but just don't read or learn anything new and you'll be okay. Automated checkout systems, I am sorry, but I am so tired of not seeing people at the store to help me. Nothing more frustrating than a basket full of groceries and going through the self-checkout. I literally want to throw stuff at people, sorry. But this is where I worked at Amazon, and they have the stores. They have the store in Seattle. That's actually really cool because I take the product, put it in my thing, and if I decide I don't want it, put it back, it comes off my account. But if I leave the store, I don't need to go through checkout. It's done as soon as I grab it. That's where we're heading, and that's all. They can tell now. I worked with Kroger, yeah, one of the large. If you go to we all go down that aisle where the brownie mix is, and you want the Duncan Hines with the teal because that's the good brownie mix. I'm telling you right now. But if you pick up the other one, because we now have Dolly Parton, she makes her own. If you haven't had the cake mix, I'm telling you, I like to eat. Sorry, but if you pick a box up and you put it back and take another one, they have AI working in that store through cameras and systems. They're doing analytics to tell the vendor suppliers what telemetry and why you picked up one over the other. This is all done through machine learning and AI. And these are little things that I think are going to help, but it's also at the same time scaring the hell out of me. Inventory management. I talked to a robotics company last year that their systems go down the aisles of any store. They can go down Lowe's, Menards, whatever. Tell you what products are in there, do the full inventory based off the scans. And it's not just doing the UPCs, it's actually able to tell through telemetry and through the cameras what products are there. And it can have all of that stuff done automatically so the system goes out and orders all the new stuff. And these are coming. Any of you work for AWS or work for Amazon in the distribution? So Amazon hires people to get products off their shelves. And Jeff Bezos is a brilliant man, but he's running a business. And I don't know anyone in this room who has gotten faster and better and more efficient as they get older. In fact, I'm serious. In the morning when I wake up, I'm doing a risk assessment before I get out of bed. I am seriously trying to decide, do I move quick? Do I move slow? Because, I mean, you've all done it. You pick up a piece of paper and you're out for a week. But if you're working in those distribution centers, they're measuring you on how efficiently you're packing and you're packaging. It benefits them to go to robotics and AI. Retail stores, grocery stores. We need to start educating our math and sciences because this stuff is going to put a lot of people into other fields really quick. I can't tell you how fast this is going to happen. I went into Target 2 weeks ago. Self-checkout was the only thing open. There's 30. I'm in a super Target. Yeah, super Walmart, super Target, got everything. But they had 30 different checkout lanes. Not a person working at one of them. That's where we're heading. And it's not that people don't want to work. They could pay them. They don't want to. I don't want to pay you $30 an hour. You're checking people out with food. But I'll put them through self-checkout and they'll learn to love the machine. I don't, but they're going to try. Yep. Oh, no, I'm good. Couple of more things. Let's see. Oh, satellites, various sensors, ground-based sensors. We're going to have sensor overload. I am kind of frustrated with the whole smart home thing right now. Any of you try to wire your house, cameras, sensors? I have a 1902 farmhouse that has more technology than I think any other house in the block because I don't live there full time. But if a gnat sneezes, I know it because I've got cameras everywhere. I've got Wi-Fi set up at the house. The problem is all the different standards are not quite in sync yet. And I think AI suffers from the same problem. You have ChatGPT and OpenAI by Microsoft. You've got Google's Bard. You've got Salesforce is using, what is theirs? Crap, I can't remember the name. Oracle's got theirs. Google has theirs. Everyone. But there's no global body yet that's come together that says, here's the AI standards that we're going to follow as a group. So just think about this. Companies are in the business of what? Making money. They're not in the business of you and being in their best interest. They want to keep you alive because you're paying, and they want to keep you alive because you have money, and until you don't, then you're not really a resource to them. They want good consumers. AI is changing that whole dynamic. And The virtual assistant thing, I don't know if you've done, if you're using Microsoft's new tools, whatnot, if you've implemented or you've gone out and looked at personal assistants, you can hire personal assistants online now that's totally automated, that'll handle your calls. Kate is going to be speaking after this, right? I think in 1. Oh, good. But you want to go see that because she actually did something really cool that I think you're gonna find very interesting. Scary, but cool. And then a couple more things around AI that I'm just having this conversation with you because when I started this conversation, it was blocking and tackling. Identity is a control plane. Data protection. It's about safety. We want to eat good food. Therefore, I don't want to eat weeds. I don't want to eat chemicals or pesticides, but I don't want weeds in my salad. I think kale is a weed. And when I moved to Seattle, I had to explain to a lot of people, it, like parsley, is a garnish, but they keep eating it. I don't know. I hope AI figures out that kale is a weed and takes care of it for us. Virtual reality, augmented. So Facebook is coming out with their new goggles. This is a generational thing. My boys are in their mid to late 20s, and my oldest will spend hours with those goggles on. It's a discussion that he and his family and I have all the time about you're wasting your life. But he is super, super smart, and it's a whole different world that they are willing to live in and transact in. And learning capability, any of you use HoloLens? If you get to go to an executive briefing in Redmond, you can do the HoloLens tour. And I like the augmented reality versus virtual because I can still see stuff, but it'll help me locate things and help me fix things. And then finally, the satellites. So I think I'm in closing. Sweet. Timing. Work. Yep. This is just identity. I think these are things that are that takeaways from the rest of the thing that I've had a conversation on with you. And we've talked about a lot of different topics. I think AI is something we need to really research and investigate. I think you need to really challenge your vendors on how they're doing security from an identity perspective, from an AppSec perspective. And I don't know if I have any, but are there any questions, comments? Feedback is a gift. Oh, you're a platform person. I don't disagree with you. Right. And I think if you're in this business, go to a platform. It'll solve 80% of your problems, and then fill in the gaps with vendors on the Magic Quadrant or Forrester or whatever you want to go. Any other? I do appreciate all of your time. If you have any comments or feedback, I really would appreciate that as well. Like I said, you're the first people to actually see this presentation, so hopefully it was informative and helpful and gives you some things to think about. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Mr. Shawn Anderson.